Today, let's give a little attention to George Upchurch, who was head of the George Upchurch clan. He was born in Brunswick County, Virginia, but let's see how he fits into the overall Upchurch family. Let's take a look at the five-generation chart, and here we see Michael Upchurch I, the original Upchurch who came to America from England in 1638, followed by his son Richard Upchurch and his son James Upchurch I, on to Michael Upchurch I, and finally to George Upchurch, the individual whom we discuss today. Now, George Upchurch, being born in 1757, was a young man at the time of the Revolution, and as far as we know, he did not take place in the Revolution, although some of his close kin certainly did. And in fact, his father did, Michael Upchurch III. We also need to think a little bit about how he traveled about the country, starting in Brunswick County, Virginia, and ending up in Kentucky. But before we do that, let's look a little bit at the map of Virginia, which shows how the Upchurches started out in Surry County, Virginia, and gradually over the years moved southwest to Brunswick County, Virginia. As a matter of fact, George's father was born in 1728 in Brunswick County, Virginia, and died there in 1765. George, having been born there in 1757, got married there, and his first children were born there. Now, of course, as we tell this story about George Upchurch, we naturally turn to his thick compendium on his biofile, and we pull from there things that we would like to tell you about. And one of the nicest summaries I found as I leafed through there was one that was provided to me by Anna Marie Crouch on the 13th of February 2010. And she gives a good little description of George Upchurch and his movement about the country. I'll just read you a few phrases from this. She tells it where he was born and died, and she gives the detail that George and his wife Rachel were listed in the tax list of Brunswick County, Virginia in 1782 and 1788. Now there's a hard bit of information for this part of the Upchurch family, which positions them in that county, in that state, and that time. And you can presume if they were there on the tax list in 1782 and 1788, they had already started their family. And as a matter of fact, we continue looking at Anna Marie's listing, and she lists the 7 children of George and Rachel. The first 3 were born in Virginia, as we speculated, in 1782, 1784, and 1788. She goes on to list the next 4 that were born in North Carolina in 1790, 1792, 1799, and 1800. That gives you a good start in learning about the George Upchurch family. Now, he lived in Iredell County, North Carolina for a number of years. He was certainly there by the time of the 1790 census with his young family. And he lived there perhaps for 15 or possibly 20 years. As a matter of fact, his sons grew up and got married there and started having their children. But at a certain point in time, George had the wanderlust, and he moved on to Wayne County, Kentucky, leaving his older children back in Iredell County, North Carolina, and they in fact bought George's land in Iredell County. So we will find more records in Iredell County, North Carolina, if we look back and try to flesh out the details on this particular part of the Upchurch family. But in short order, all of the children, married ones and others, moved to Wayne County, Kentucky as well to join their father. So we established this major Upchurch clan in Wayne County, Kentucky, which we continue to follow until this day. Now, when I start thinking about George Upchurch and his uniqueness, we start out with him born and raised and marrying and having children in Brunswick County, Virginia, moving on to Iredell County, North Carolina, to continue his family there, and then moving to Wayne County, Kentucky, where he finally died about 1830. Now, Wayne County, Kentucky is very special for the Upchurch family and the George Upchurch clan, because this is the one county in America which is uniquely associated with a specific head of an Upchurch clan. There are thousands upon thousands of descendants of George Upchurch who trace their heritage back to Wayne County, Kentucky. Now, when I say Wayne County, Kentucky, I need to be a little more expansive, because in fact, one of George's sons, Joseph, shortly after they moved to Wayne County, Kentucky, slipped just over the border into Tennessee, and we have a map here showing the outline of Wayne County, Kentucky, with the county seat Monticello highlighted, and just below that, across the state line in Tennessee, we find Fentress County, Tennessee, where Joseph Upchurch lived and had many descendants. There were some other descendants of George that also slipped across the line a little bit, but primarily we find there in Tennessee the descendants of Joseph Upchurch. Now, there's some other special things I can tell you about the George Upchurch clan. One is that he is also unique because he had a book written primarily about him, and I show you here the book by Olive A. Morgan called The Upchurch Story. Now, she didn't publish the first Upchurch book, that was Bell West, but hot on her heels was Olive Morgan. And it was my pleasure to have met Olive Morgan, to have had lunch with her, and for her to give me permission to use materials in her book. But a great part of this book is devoted to her ancestor, George Upchurch, and she researched this diligently for many, many years, and we are all blessed because we have this particular book available. Now, we are also blessed because in Wayne County, Kentucky, they have a very active family history organization and historical society. We receive on a regular basis the overview of their magazine called Overview about family history in Wayne County, Kentucky, and from time to time we see citations of the Upchurches there. These all go into the Upchurch collection in due course. I'll just take one excerpt from this Overview magazine, and I have a picture here of the front of the building where they house the family history material, and that has a very interesting history. Because of the interest of the people in that county in family history and in history in general, they arranged to acquire an old hotel. It's called the Breeding Hotel, which eventually was abandoned being a hotel, but was then acquired for historical purposes. And this part that houses the library of the Genealogical Society is one wing of that old building. Now, in there you will have a huge collection of material, and if you go there you'll find out that the Upchurches are mentioned very frequently because they were very numerous in that county. So they have moved their family history, the genealogical headquarters there, and one of the statements made here is that the old hotel is becoming a museum where artifacts from Wayne County's past can be displayed and appreciated. So the Overview magazine and their historical society is an excellent source of information. Now, I mentioned earlier Olive Morgan and her book. It was my pleasure to go to Wayne County, Kentucky in 1999 and to have a tour of all of these sites. And this has been recorded in the Upchurch Bulletin of July 1999. And if you're interested in what we found there, there are detailed notes given in this Upchurch Bulletin about this visit to Wayne County and how exciting it was. I'll just read a couple of excerpts from the information I published in the bulletin. It refers in particular to Mr. and Ms. Ernest Henninger, Ernie and his wife Dart, Melva Dart's Upchurch, who were very helpful in scheduling that trip. And in fact, Melva has been a close collaborator over the many years and has a keen interest in her Upchurch heritage. She was born there in Wayne County, Kentucky. It states here in this summary that George, sometime in the 1810 to 1814 period, relocated to the Little South Fork River in southern Wayne County, Kentucky, near Mount Pisgah. It goes on to tell how I traveled there and made some trips into the Mount Pisgah area under the guidance of some local people, and actually located the cemetery that probably was the place that George Upchurch was buried. His son, Shadrach, acquired the property of George Upchurch when he died in 1830, so that land stayed in the Upchurch family for a long time. It always was of concern to me is about the linkage between the Upchurches in Fentress County, Tennessee, and those in Wayne County, Kentucky. And when I went to this Little South Fork River, they pointed out to me that there was a rock up in the mountains, and George Upchurch was always said to live under the shadow of this rock. And a matter of fact, just across the divide was where you begin to find the Tennessee area. So these two areas were accessible to one another, even though you might have to travel some rough territory. The other part about Fentress County, Tennessee, is there is a really large collection of Upchurches there as well, descending primarily from Joseph, the son of George Upchurch. And they have published this huge book on Fentress County, Tennessee heritage. And the Upchurches are mentioned prominently in this book. There are several detailed articles about Upchurches in this book. And it was also my pleasure to visit Fentress County, Tennessee once and to give a talk on the Upchurch family and to visit all of the various sites. One of the exciting parts about this is, if you know history, is that this Fentress County, Tennessee is where Sergeant Alvin York lived. And in fact, when Alvin York died, he died in the arms of one of the Upchurch men in that community. That's another footnote connection for the Upchurches in history. I think that this particular part of the family, the George Upchurch clan, is extremely fortunate to have all of this information that has been pulled together, and that in fact they have a repository there in Wayne County that keeps all of these records. Any descendants of George Upchurch should feel comfortable in contacting these authorities in Wayne County and asking about their relatives and offering their information to be added to the collection that is there in this excellent family history library. I hope you've appreciated learning a little bit about George Upchurch, head of one of the 22 Upchurch clans in America.
Thank you.